What is up guys, my name is Jack Gardiner and today we're going to be talking all about time feel, which can also go under the name of groove or feel, whatever you want to call it. But I do think this is a topic that as guitarists we tend to neglect a little bit. There is a bit of a running joke between other musicians, mainly bass players, drummers and keyboard players, in that most guitarists' timing tends to suck. Now I think there are a few reasons for this. Mainly it's down to the fact that as guitarists, when we're learning the instrument, I think a lot of time is spent learning licks and also learning technique based things. So we tend to put the whole timing and groove thing to one side when we're learning that. That's all about harmonic content rather than the rhythmic aspect of things. So today I want to give you a few exercises that you can practice to help further develop this. This is a topic that comes up all the time with pupils and there is no real right answer. I just want to push you along a path that can kind of help you develop it. It certainly helped me. Ross Campbell, who's an amazing guitarist, an amazing YouTuber, recently did a video entitled 3 exercises to try the next time you practice, which I do think is essential viewing. I mean, he covers some really cool topics in there. But one of the things which I took away from that is when he was talking about players like Josh Smith and John Mayer, in the way in which they are able to create music even when they are playing by themselves unaccompanied. You know, there's no backing track, there's no other musicians playing with them, but it still sounds like music and it still sounds good. Now, a lot of that is down to them being able to outline changes within their playing, so understanding the harmony and stuff like that. But that would all fall apart really quickly if they did not have an innate sense of time and an innate sense of feel. Now, there's a big debate on whether timing and groove and all these kind of things are what you are born with. These are things that can't be learned. I don't know whether I agree with that fully. I do think that you can further develop and further, explore your own time feel. And in this video, I'm going to go through some exercises which could possibly help you with that. But before I do that, I do think it's important to note that I think the best way to develop your time feel is to just play with other musicians live. I think that was the key for me. I was very lucky in the sense that back in Liverpool when I was like 18, 19, I was playing with some guys who were from a gospel background and their time feel was just impeccable. It really did kick my ass in that sense. I remember every gig just thinking, how did they do it? Now, I think with those guys, that was essentially because they grew up playing in church, so they were used to gigging all the time with different musicians. You know, it's one of those things, the more and more you play, the more and more you will realise things are out of time or things are in time. When we talk about groove, when we watch certain players, you listen to them and you think, oh my word, his groove is insane, that feels so good. A lot of that is because they just simply played and played and played and played live. So yeah, first of all though, we will look at some exercises that you can practice at home, because I know some of you YouTubers might not have the opportunity to play with other musicians. If you don't, then I think this is a really good way to start. So let's take a look over that way. So the first exercise we want to look at is all based around the metronome. I'm sure most of you are familiar with this. Before we dig into that, I do want to point out a thing that an old drummer friend of mine actually told me once when we were on a gig discussing this topic of time feel. Now, he said with drummers, what he tends to teach is that you should always be moving a part of your body to the groove, which I suppose for drummers is very natural. They're constantly moving things to hit things. But as guitar players, maybe we don't do that as much. You may have seen at the beginning of the video, I was moving my foot, tapping it in time, and that is a very, very basic way of doing things. I'm sure you do that already. But what I mean by moving something else maybe is you will see for example like the likes of the bass player from VULFPECK, Joe Dart, where he's got that little chicken neck on the go. is helping him feel internally the groove, which I think is a really important point. You know, if you're sat there static, it's going to be much harder to feel each individual beat, whereas if you're moving something, it's more likely that you're going to be in time. There are guys that do this when they're totally out of time, but you know, just the point. Yeah, so always be focusing, can you move a part of your body in time with the groove? Anyway, back to the metronome then. So what I would do, I've got a Logic project here set up at 100 BPM. Now, I would take maybe 2 chords, some simple chords. I'm just going to play an E-7, and then I'm going to play an A13 or an A7 chord, whatever you like. Now, the first way I would play this then would be to just literally play quarter notes or crotchet notes. So every beat is going to have a chord stab. Let me try recording that in now. So if I was to go here, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So what I want you to do is record yourself doing something similar to that, where you are just on the quarter notes, the crotchets, and then listen back and be brutally honest. Are you in time with the click? Now, another way you can check that would be to go into Logic and actually zoom in. And you can see here, these little waveforms are correlating with the beats, and most of them seem to be pretty much bang on if you think they're the subdivisions there. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, they are pretty much bang on. Obviously there's some that are behind and some that are ahead. That's what you're looking for. So if you are constantly ahead of those subdivisions, then you know that you're rushing. If you're behind, then you know you're dragging the beat. Dragging is less, it's a lesser evil than pushing, I promise you that. So just be honest, that's the key. Now what I would do from there then is I would basically do the same thing, but this time we are going to focus just on playing on beats 2 and 4. Why 2 and 4? Well, 2 and 4 are commonly known as the backbeat. It's where the snare will hit. There's a running joke that, you know, non-musicians tend to clap on 1 and 3, and when you're at a gig, that is the most painful thing. You'll know that if you've encountered that before. I've seen some clever videos where certain musicians will throw in odd time signatures just to switch that back to beats 2 and 4 where the audience are clapping. It's a nightmare. But anyway, we're going to take a look at just how that will work now. So same principle, except we're going to play the chord stabs only on beats 2 and 4. Let's try that. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So, again, listen to yourself back, be really honest, are you in time? And the other way to tell, like I said earlier, is to zoom in on Logic and see if those beats correlate, which some of mine do. That one was a tiny bit rushed, but yeah, it's pretty much bang on. Now, it's important to note, going back to when I was talking about the whole Joe Dart chicken neck thing, I like to call it, you could see then I was clearly moving parts of my body to try and see, or to try and feel internally where that time feel is, and it really does help. If I was to do the same thing without moving anything, I'd probably struggle. Now, before we move on to some different types of exercises, I just want to point out this is a really cool exercise you can use if you're looking to develop your swing feel. This is something that jazz players use all the time. Now, what they will do is simply, if you went into metronome settings and you change it so that every metronome beat sounds exactly the same, in other words, there's no emphasis on beat 1 to guide you that that's the first beat, we're really looking for an emphasis on beats 2 and 4. Now, if we are at 100 BPM, then what I would do is I would go back to my session and I would just go 2, 4, 2, 4, 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now this is really great for developing some kind of, you know, swing feel. If I was to record them with that. etc, etc. I am not a jazz player by any means, but that gives you an idea of how you can practice that, just to develop a kind of swing feel. Again, listen back to yourself and really be honest. That's the key with time feel, it's being honest with yourself. Listen to it and think, am I in time really? Because no one else is going to tell you. I think it's one of those things, unless someone's going to be brutally honest with you, you're never going to know. You've got to be honest with yourself. So let's move on then to certain things that I like to do. So the metronome is a really, really useful tool, but what helped me more really in terms of developing my time feel was to use drum loops or backing tracks. I know there's a whole school of thought that says this is not a good idea and that a metronome is more honest, but for me it just helped me stay interested. Maybe it says a lot about my attention span, but the metronome can start to sound dull very quickly, in my opinion anyway. So in Logic, if you use that, it's actually so resourceful in terms of, if we go up to here to the Apple Loops section, you can just click where it says all drums and you will see there are hundreds, if not thousands, of drum loops within there, and they will literally match to your tempo. So I took this one, Benny, Funky Brothers or whatever, and you can just drag and drop it in there. And yeah, there we go. Let's have a listen to what that would sound like. Quite a simple funky groove. Now what I would do from there then, you could practice everything that we did earlier in terms of, you know, playing chords just on crotchets, and then taking it onto 2 and 4. But what we're going to do is actually look at single line playing. So what I would do is take one scale that I am totally familiar with all across the fretboard, and I will play just crotchet notes or quarter notes, improvising. It doesn't matter where I play them, but I just want to make sure that they are in time. So let me give that a go then if we were to click record. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Etc, etc. What I could do from there after say 10-15 minutes of doing that is to then take it to quaver notes or eighth notes. So 1, 2, 3, 4. What we could do after that then, maybe, again, I'm rushing through these, you should be spending at least 10 minutes of just this. I would then maybe go on to another subdivision, so maybe let's try 8-note triplets. So 1, 2. I was a bit sloppy on the first few there. Then I go to 16th notes after that. I know I played some chromaticism, but you get the idea, and then you could go eventually to the whole 16th note triplets. Let's see if I can do that now. 2, 3, 4. I'm not quite up to speed today, but you get the idea. It's just about building and building and building. Now, I think it's really important again to make sure that you are listening back to this and being brutally honest. Are you in time? And like I said earlier, again, you can physically check if you just go into Logic and zoom in, and you will see these subdivisions. So yeah, let's move on to then the final exercise I'd like to give you guys today. So with this last exercise then, we're going to do something that's a lot more tricky, and it really does expose us. All we're going to do is take that same drum loop, but the drum loop's going to play for 3 bars, and in that 4th bar there's going to be absolute silence, no metronome or anything like that. It's going to be down to us to play. Hopefully this will brutally expose our timing issues. So yeah, let's try that. So let's try this. I'm going to stick in E. I might play E Dorian, I might play other sounds like E Mixolydian and stuff like that, but the main thing is we're focusing on that fourth bar where the drum is going to disappear. So yeah, let's give it a go. Here I go. I see what I mean. And again, it's so difficult the more and more you do. But the idea is then you can carry on with that taken away bars. You could go and make it so that there's only 2 bars of the drummer playing. Let me try that now. Okay, so this time the drummer is literally only going to play 2 bars and then we're on our own for 2 bars. Let's give that a go. So. It's so difficult. There we go. That's the idea. We got there in the end. So yeah, as you can see in that last exercise, I was really starting to struggle with taking out 2 bars worth of drum loop and having to fill that time myself. It's just a really great way of seeing if you are, you know, developing this internal clock, if you are on the money, shall we say. I'd love to see maybe some of you guys try that exercise. Maybe we could start like an Instagram challenge or something like that. Send me your videos of you trying out that exercise and tag me in it, and I'd love to see them. But yeah, I think it's worth pointing out before I close this video really, another exercise which I didn't really mention today is to loop yourself. I had a gig back home in England for a while where it was just me and a singer. Now often the singer would tell me to solo in the solo section of a track, and if it's just you as the only instrument there, that can be really difficult or nerve-wracking. So what I used to do was take a loop pedal with me, and I would loop that part of the song so that at least I had some harmonic context of what I was playing over the top without having to just arrive to chordal playing. Looping, again, it will expose any kind of issues you have with time and hopefully encourage you to work on them and iron out those issues. So yeah, guys, before I go, I might just mention that my website currently has a sale on where you can get my lessons for cheaper than they usually are. If you're interested in that, please do head over to www.jack-gardiner.co.uk. Other than that, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please do like, subscribe, and click that little bell for notifications, otherwise you won't see anything. Yeah, I'm out of here. Thank you very much again, guys. See you later.